Good morning here on the East Coast to my listeners, viewers, and on the left coast as well, where it's a lot earlier, only 8 a.m. It is Friday, so feel good Friday, Friday free for all. We always call it the Friday free for all back in the Monterey days. I was watching my video stream, my live stream yesterday with Medea. And please check it out. Halitics is, of course, the only place you can watch this, the YouTube channel Halitics. The links are on Facebook, but you click to Halitics. Please click subscribe. Please, the more subscribers, the more distribution we get, the more people see this, the more people who like my videos, the more chance I can at some point start to make a little bit of shekels out of this. And just justify continuing to do it. Because as much as I love this, as much as I love talking to you, I really want to talk to you directly. I want you to call me right now. It's 240-283-7262. We're probably going to, I should say almost definitely going to get a new number next week. I'm going to try a different call-in system. We'll still have our guests on video. And I think it's pretty interesting the way I'm doing this with the Zoom calls for my guests, and we use a slide deck system. It's pretty simplistic. If you've been on Zoom calls, it's actually not very challenging. The only thing that really was a struggle for me to get right, and I think I did, was the audio, to make sure that we had good, clear audio with our speakers, our guests, everybody. And so far, we haven't had any callers, so I do hope you'll be my first caller, 240-283-7262. I know people are watching my videos. Of course, I want the numbers to keep getting bigger and bigger. I know you're watching, but you're not watching them live. I understand that. This is the new kind of mode, right? The new model is people watch. There's no such thing as an appointment video. There's no such thing as appointment radio anymore. People listen, they watch when it's convenient for them. But if you want to talk to me, you're kind of stuck. If you are happy just listening to me jabber on and hear me talking to my speakers, my guests, that's great. You can see them as well. But if you want to debate, if you want to discuss, if you want an issue that I haven't mentioned to be raised, then you do have no choice but to call. And I know people call on some of the other programs with perhaps slightly bigger audiences. We'll get there, I promise you. Okay, so 240-283-7262 if you want to join me. Let me see if I can get my little, that's one thing I thought, I'm all ready to go, geared up, moving along here. But let me get my little Halitics oval on the screen as well, so then you can see the number, right? The number to call. So we're going to start with a topic that I focus on a lot. That is functionalism. Why do we keep seeing what I would call, it seems like, pretty destructive behaviors, destructive actions by individuals, by institutions in society? Why don't we get it right? And what functionalism in social sciences says, that everything that happens, it's all for a purpose. They do, in fact, keep the society going. Now, as that definition from Encyclopedia Britannica, and it's pretty standard, right? I saw that in some other, I looked at a few different definitions. This one seemed pretty standard and it was easy to copy. So when you see a dynamic that is visible and persists in a society, then it has some function. It has a purpose in that society, even if you think it's kind of crazy. Like, why are we doing it? So war has a purpose. Now, these may not be good purposes. They may not lead to better outcomes for more people. They may lead to much worse outcomes for more people, but they do serve a purpose for somebody, for some people, for some institutions, and they do keep the society going, maintained in a certain fashion. So racism, as ugly as it is, does serve a function in society. When during slavery, it served the function of maintaining a massively unequal and unjust and wrong-headed and immoral society going for centuries. And it kept a certain group of people that there was a little tiny bit, I guess, of social dynamism there, but almost, the same people were at the top for centuries, the same families, the descendants of the original slave owners maintained their power. So that's the function of racism. It maintains a social order that is beneficial to a few and extraordinarily harmful to many. And I wonder, we talk a lot on this show, and I do focus on my Facebook page, if you friend me, on the whole idea of wokeness and why we're seeing certainly elites in society. Why do elites, the corporate behemoths, the billionaire class, they do seem very open to what we call wokeness, whether it's, expressing concerns for the trans community, the LGBT community, the communities of color. There's a lot of emphasis among elites in support of those groups. So the question is, why are they doing that, especially when the elites tend to be disproportionately white men? So it's sort of question you would say to yourself, I mean, they're not invariably white men, but, there's an Oprah here or there. But the percentage of white men who are large and in charge in our society is significantly greater than their proportionate representation in society as a whole. So why are they apparently, when you see Disney having trans days, when you see the current, again, let's go back to Disney for just a moment, Disney having their movies, Pinocchio and the like, remade with very, very diverse, very, very politically correct dialogue, diverse casts. Why are they doing that if it would apparently seem to be counter or contraindicated, since the people who make the decisions at Disney are by and large white men? There was an article in the Washington Post. Now, I bear all this in mind with the theory of functionalism. All of this does serve a purpose. The Washington Post had an article years ago, I still remember, by a feminist scholar. I think her name is Danuta, Danuta. I don't have it up, but her name is Suzanne, I believe. Danuta, correct me if I'm wrong, 240-283-7262. She argued that the best thing that white men can do is step aside, relinquish control. This was in the pages of the Washington Post. Relinquish control over the levers of power, whether it's as president, whether it's as CEO of major corporations. That's what Danuta said. That's what white men should do, is step aside. And men should do in general, step aside for women, but specifically white men. So the Washington Post at that time, and I believe now, is almost completely controlled by white men. The owner is a white man, Jeff Bezos. At the time, the op-ed page editor, I would say the second most powerful person so the publisher is Bezos, I believe. Certainly the owner is the most important influence over the paper's direction, a white man. Likewise, Fred Hyatt, probably the second most important and powerful and influential person at that time. Hyatt since died. There was Barron, I believe. I forget his first name. It's not John, but Barron, who was the newspaper editor. Marty Barron. That's right, Marty Barron. So they're all white men. So why would they publish an editorial calling for them, white men, to step down, to step aside, to make room for groups that have been traditionally marginalized, or have, at a minimum, if not marginalized, certainly have not enjoyed the same amount of power and influence over society as a few, not all, as a small number, as a minority of white men have. So what's the function? And I'll get to that in just a moment. I've talked about this before. It really came to mind when I watched this video with Brianna Joy Gray and Robbie Suave on the Hill broadcast. So that's a good one. There's a few I really like. There's a few live streams I really like besides my own. I don't think I should even call them live streams, because after all, they're not live like mine is, but mine is live, and we'll dissect the response of Robbie and more particularly Brianna Joy Gray, who's a real progressive, in just a moment. The phone number again, 240-283-7262, 240-283-7262 if you want to join me. Again, this is the Hal Ginsberg show. Halitics is what we call it here, Halitics. And I just wanted to make one other comment. I do think the look is good. I like the look of this. It's a little, probably you'd say, well, it's kind of static. You've got just the one camera, and it's not real 3D, but it's not bad. I say I like it. I like the way we look right now. There's no more of that blue tinge. And if you have suggestions for an improved background, please let me know. 240-283-7262. You can text me at that number, and you can also go to my website, which has not been updated. I guess I should put my my shows up there, halginsberg.com. All right. So what I noticed from watching my live stream yesterday with Medea Benjamin from Code Pink, by the way, I did post a link to her new book. Hope you'll check that out at Halitics and subscribe on YouTube to the Halitics channel. So it says Halitics Live, but again, you got to go to the YouTube channel, Halitics, and just subscribe and like my videos, and then you'll get more and more of them. You're going to get them anyway. So it's not like you can avoid me if you don't subscribe. Well, you can sort of avoid because you won't get as many notifications, but you're going to get these regardless. So you might as well just like them because what the heck? I mean, hey, do me, throw me a bone, folks. 240-283-7262. All right, let's get to this video. I really was intrigued by this. I want to see if I can play it, and I really liked what Brianna Joy and Robbie had to say, especially Brianna Joy. But I don't agree with their entire take, and that is why you watch my video, because this is not like any other. There's two things. You get to share your view, and also it's a different take. I will provide you with a different perspective than even others who you probably would say, oh, no, she's real, they're more progressive. In some ways, I guess Brianna Joy probably is more progressive than I am. I think here she doesn't fully get it. So enough with me. Let's see if we can play this video. You'll probably see the little mouse. I don't like that mouse. I wish you didn't have to see it, but here you go. And I hope you can hear it too. Let's see.
Scrutiny about why it is that corporations who do not share the same interests with the various marginalized individuals are adopting certain slogans, flags, logos, etc. And is it actually to advance the interests of those marginalized groups, which again are not aligned with the interests of corporations who often are involved in exploitation and in extreme economic inequity? Or is it to start to try to insulate themselves from criticism so they can say, oh, we have a black CEO, or we have a women CEO, or we're diverse, or we sponsor the Pride Parade, or we're a friendly, woke company, and criticisms and policy changes like imposing a wealth tax that could actually raise the kind of funds that could be used in the populations that they claim to care about.
Even on the wokeness issues themselves, not walking the walk when it does put their business model at risk. How many companies will make statements against whatever the religious freedom provision in whatever state, but will willingly take out, if you're an entertainment production company, will take out a same-sex romance or a plot line that is even remotely critical to China.
Yes.
That's gone because of what religiously repressive or authoritarian communist governments like Chinese, if they want them, then the company, then its commitment to wokeness is over. Its commitment to wokeness, it only matters so far as it's domestic, and oh well, there's gonna be a couple angry.
Yes, it's not actually, it's not commitment. Yeah. It's a window dressing. It's a shield against substantive criticisms that are really.
All right, so that's where that ended. It's a shield against substantive criticism. That's not enough. That's a great discussion from Brianna Joy Gray and Robbie Suave, but it doesn't fully answer the question. What is the function? It's not just window dressing. It's not just insulation. It actually makes things worse. They are pitting poor, struggling, and working people against each other. They are dividing. When I say they, I mean the elites. I mean the establishment. I mean the New York Times. I mean Fox News. They're matching people against each other who have very similar, if not identical, economic interests, and they're dividing them by race, by gender, by culture, by everything they can to prevent these groups from coming together to fight for justice for poor, struggling, and working people. Because that is the one thing that would take away their real power. Their remarkably privileged position vis-a-vis poor, struggling, and working people. And that's the real reason in the end why we have the embrace by elites, by institutions. Now, there's more to it. There's a little more. Surely there's a little window dressing. There's a little pink washing, what have you. If you're Israel, you portray yourself as a destination for gays, gay vacationers, so that they'll overlook your persecution of the Palestinians. So certainly there's some of that. There's also a wish to feel better about yourself, right? Hey, I can't be that bad. I'm for trans rights. I can't be that bad. I think a trans woman should get to race in college against bio women. I can't be that bad a person, because so I do live better than other people, much, much better, but I can't be that bad a person. So that's an attitude, right, that people have. And it's understandable. You want to feel good about yourself. And then there's also self-interest. There really is. I mean, part of it is, hey, if you're David Geffen, a multi-billionaire, you are for gay rights. You're gay. You want gay people to have it really good. If you're Oprah, you're a multi-billionaire. You do want oppression, persecution of Black people to stop. Of course, it's to your interest to do that. But the function ultimately is about maintaining a truly unjust social order. And that's why we see it. And that's why we see it over and over. Now let's get to the next story. And again, I'm sorry.
Scrutiny about
this
why
is what drives me crazy. There we go. I don't know what I can do about that. It seems like every time I try to go to the next slide after I watched a video, instead I get the video to start again. But here we go. Let's see if we can get the slide deck up again. Blah, blah, blah. Here we go. So the self-destructive, and let me get my little oval there. The self-destructive effects of progressive sadness. Now, I posted this on my Facebook page with the caption, David Brooks, the New York Times columnist, is wronger on just about everything than just about anybody. But like the proverbial blind squirrel, I like that analogy, right? Is that what you call it? Or that meme? The blind squirrel that stumbles on an acorn. Brooks, in my opinion, gets this right. Why are we as progressives unhappy? What's going on here? And he says a couple of points. And this, by the way, goes right to that issue of wokeness. He says, we got to stop this focus, this belief that we're victims. We're victims because of our identity. We're victims because of mean people out there. I want to say this. I absolutely believe that our society has created massive winners and a few winners, incredibly lucky winners, incredibly fortunate winners, and lots of losers. But if you see yourself as a victim because of your race, because of your gender, then there's very little you can do. You don't have allies except for people who look like you. It's such a reductive answer, right? What's the solution? I have to team up with people who look exactly like me and think exactly like me. There's no ability, there's no way we can unite, we can unify. But If you say, no, the structure of society is bad, it's unfair, it's unjust because some people have so much and lots of people, some of whom look like me, but some of whom look very differently than I do, and who may think differently and live in a different place than I do and have different set of experiences, but they're also victims. Let's get together. Let's fight together. But if you believe that everything that's going wrong is because of what people are saying, mean words, which we're not strong enough to stand up to accept that some people feel differently and not hate them and think that they're bad in every regard, then there's really no way. There's no solution. And that is, now, Brooks is a neoliberal. He's totally not for reconfiguring society to be economically just. But his argument, his position about why we on the left, many of us are depressed, are sad, because we are snowflakes. We can't seem to handle bad words, that we fight against what we consider to be culture issues rather than the actual distribution of wealth. That is absolutely a recipe for sadness, because that's not really the cause of our unhappiness. We're unhappy because people are hungry. We're unhappy because we may be hungry. We're unhappy because people are economically anxious. We may be economically anxious. That's the real cause of our unhappiness. And it's also, by the way, the cause of the tensions, the anger between us. We're fighting over scraps from the rich man's table. We're not demanding that the table be pulled down and that everyone get a fair share. And that's what we need to do if we want to stop being unhappy. So the other part of this is, it seems like there's no nuance, right? And this is absolutely correct also. So, I'm critical of Trump, but I'm also critical of the Democrats. And I'm not as critical of Trump as many people are, because I recognize that some of the policies that he actually did embrace weren't so bad. And in fact, in some areas, he was better than Democrats. So we had this conversation yesterday with Medea. And the point was, I said, when it comes to war and peace, I think I said Trump wasn't even the worst president in recent times. And she pushed back and she said, well, look at Cuba, look at Iran. And those were great points. Exactly right. We're having a discussion about the facts, the reality on the ground. How bad was Trump? What did he do that wasn't so bad? He did try to tamp down tensions with Russia. That was good. But look at the bad things too. Don't pretend, just because you don't like Democrats, Hal, which I don't pretend Trump wasn't so bad because you don't like Democrats. Look at the whole body, and it's really, really bad. And that was in my view, a great educational moment for me, because it was about the facts. It wasn't, you can't say anything good or bad. You can't say anything that isn't totally oppositional to Trump, or as Brooks says, if you don't speak the language of maximalist exorcism, you're betraying the cause. Yeah, no, that's not it. The cause is served by the truth, not by maximal exorcism. And if we serve that cause, a better world in the end, a better life for all, well, except for those who are living way too large already, and a fairer, freer society and a cleaner environment. If we do all that, things really will get better. By the way, Dave, thank you for catching, or Dan, I'm sorry for catching that bad audio. I think I got it resolved. I hope. You haven't let me know, but I'll assume it's all right. All right, so now let's get to the feel-good story of the day. So it is a Friday, so we really have to have a Friday feel-good story. And this is a real feel-good story. What we've been fighting in Maryland is against these horrible toll for-profit railroad, sorry, not railroad. Wish it was railroad. Railroad would be better. For-profit toll roads. And they have these express lanes where you pay like a ton to go faster than everybody else. And it's so wasteful. Oh my gosh, you have these empty lanes, and then you have lanes that are clogged. It's a terrible system. I do think we should be paying when you use the roads, but everyone should pay the same, and it should be designed to incentivize trains, public transit, and the like. But these toll roads are actually gobbling up more space, where they have express lanes in the middle and then they have slow lanes on the side. So they gobble up more space. They're incredibly inefficient, and they're designed to make profits for the corporations that lobby lawmakers. So the good news is, and by the way, the good news is that the toll road operator has withdrawn. They're saying, forget it. We don't want to do this. The Beltway, I-270, we're not going to do this. And that's great. It means less road building, less road widening. That is exactly what we need, less of it. We need to focus on public transit, more availability. So I wanted to just get to this last part of it. Their concern, these operators, is their concern is that the governor is not a fan. Governor Moore. And, I'm sure they'll be able to lobby him. He's pretty neoliberal. He's a rich guy. He doesn't have a history as a progressive whatsoever. He's never really identified. But for whatever reason, and he says, this is not good for equity, which it isn't. In other words, the communities that will be harmed most by this road widening are communities of color for two reasons. One, many of them are close to the sides of the highway, so they're going to get more noise pollution as the roadway is widened, but also because they'll have to pay more to use the roads relatively than others. Now, I think the highway tax shouldn't be progressive in impact. So what that would mean is the money, everyone who uses it pays the same, but we use the money collected to address the problems faced by poor, struggling, working people. In the end, that would be more progressive. The money used to reduce inequality and also to provide alternatives for transit that poor, struggling, working people can use, save them money, and hopefully in the end save them time. The goal is ultimately to get people out of their cars. You see why this didn't happen. There were potentially costly lawsuits over the project's environmental implications, and that's great. Now the Post doesn't like it. The Post is like, oh, we should have protected them. We should have insulated. Why? If the actions of are going to be harmful to the environment, then that should absolutely be factored into the cost for the private corporation. Their profits should absolutely be reduced dollar for dollar by the costs that they impose on society. This is a Australian company, Transurban. And I remember I don't know if he was the president, but I remember I was in Annapolis and there was an Australian guy there with a heavy Australian accent. And he and I almost got into a fist fight. He threatened to punch me in the nose. I said, hey, why are you doing this to your kids? Do you really want more greenhouse gas emissions? Is that the planet you want to turn over to your kids? And he threatened to punch me in the nose because I'm sure he was thinking, oh yeah, well, it sucks for the planet, but my kids are going to make I'm going to make a lot of money, and that'll be better for my kids and F everyone else's. That's the attitude. I love this by Amanda Bax. I love this. We chose the path that protects the taxpayers and stakeholders since we're walking away from the opportunity to deliver this for them. Wow. So you're doing us a favor by not doing us a favor. I'm very confused by that. the interview, this is a quote from the Post. So maybe the Post quoted her wrong, but I think what they're saying is, well, we're not going to make all that much money. We're choosing not to because I don't know. I really don't understand it. But the gist is, the ultimate takeaway, they're not, at least right now, it looks like this horrible road widening, regressive taxing policy that will make things worse for the environment, that will not reduce commute times, that is the wrong way to go, was defeated in Maryland for now. And that's a really good takeaway. All right, that's going to do it for me. That's going to do it for me this week. I promise to be better about my audio output going forward, and I'll correct that I'll edit the video. All right, you all have a great